Hello everyone, Sheek here with another Transformers review, and today I will be reviewing Fans Hobby Meg-Tyranno MB17 Master Builder. And there he is. He is obviously supposed to be Armada Megatron, to go with their naval commander. And normally I would start off with the packaging. I do have the packaging, and I will show that off, but I didn't feel like taking that off, just put him back in the box. So let's set him off to the side and take a look at the box. So here we have the box. Obviously, here he would be in tank mode. There's the front of his barrel. Like I said, I didn't want to take it off. And there's his mini-con. And then, as you can see, he has multi-modes, Master Builder, bottom of the box, tank, back of the box. You can see his tank mode and his mobile fortress mode, which is kind of like a tank. It's supposed to be like a base mode, sort of. And then he can also do this like he did in the show. And he has guns and stuff. So that's about it for the box. So currently, I do have the alternate horns on. That is the face that he came with initially. I decided to keep his war face on rather than change it out because, well, I did change it out for a couple things. But for action poses, it definitely looks a lot better, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and take a look at his original horns, which both sets, in my opinion, and from what I can tell from pictures, do not match the horns that he had in the show. Not sure why they didn't want to do it exactly. And as you can see, sometimes they do tend to come a little bit loose. Definitely don't want to glue them on either, because especially if another third-party company decides that they want to make more cartoon accurate horns for them, I definitely want to be able to get those and swap them out. But the face is excellently done. You can also change out the eyes. Let's see if I can get to focus on them a little bit better. Anyway, you can swap out the eyes for translucent ones because there is an option to make them light up. I would have done so if I had the proper batteries, but I do not. But here it is right there. The translucent red for the light up eyes. And then he has some missiles that can be shot out in his tank mode. Not from the main barrel, which also has a light up feature. But I also don't have the batteries for that, unfortunately. So this is the alternate face right here. As you can see, it's just more of a neutral face, which I think is best if you're going to have him in a more neutral pose. But if you're going to have him like in a fight with Naval Commander, I feel like the war angry face is more appropriate. So so we should go ahead and take a look at him in more detail. The chest is a little bit different than the original character, but to be fair, the animation models were based heavily on the toys. So obviously there are some parts, like there's a thing that slid up for his head, which obviously isn't here, but I did put a Decepticon emblem because it did have that on the show. And I also put the repro labels on his shoulders as well. And those have a tendency to slide in. It just makes his shoulders a little bit wider. And then, as you can see, there's a lot of purple and orange on him. Olive green. Nice rubber treads all around. Love that they put that detail in. Although it makes me shudder to think of what condition they might be in, say, 15, 20 years from now. They'll probably deteriorate and all that. But it's really cool to have in the moment, of course. And then he does also have daggers that can flip out. Reminiscent of the toy. I don't know if both sides had them, but you could put a mini-con at the side and flip out his daggers. And then, as I showed earlier, this can just flip out, and it does have a handle, although it is very difficult to get his hand to hold it properly. And then for articulation, he does have a decent amount of range. His head is on a ball joint. You can look up about that far, down about that far. Does have a decent amount of side-to-side motion, especially makes his horns move because they're so far away from that point. Head can do a full 360. And shoulder arms can go out that far. They could do a full 360 if it wasn't for the shoulder treads. And depending on how you have this back turret situated, you can get the arms to go out about that far. And then there is bicep swivel, over 90-degree bends at the elbow, a lot of articulation there, and he does have wrist swivel. Thumb is on a ball joint, no hinge right here, and then all the fingers are individually articulated, but they only have 2 hinge points right here in the middle and right there at the base, and there is also hinge at the hand, but that is more for transformation, but it does make for more interesting posing positions. Like if Optimus or if Naval Commanders did the same thing, it'd be easier to maybe make them look like, if Naval Commanders had the same articulation on his hands, it might be easier to make them kind of like they're interlocking in battle. Because I do remember sometimes they clashed like that, I think, where they're like, I don't know, grappling a bit, which I thought was kind of cool. Now, there is one problem a little bit with his robot mode, trying to get the turret to stay just in place. There is a little notch, I think, that's supposed to kind of settle in robot mode, but it is tricky to get it to just line up just right. But for the most part, it does stay where you put it, just as long as you don't mess around with it too much. He does have hip rotation on a tight friction joint, no ratcheting there. Has a little bit of ab crunch, not much, but just a little bit. These flaps can move up, allowing you to get about that far forward. A nice ratchet back about that far. He does have thigh rotation. It was very tight initially on mine. I was afraid I was going to break the joints, but I think they're just going to be broken loose and broken in a little bit. But as far as I know, they are not severely stressed. At least I hope they're not. Legs can go out about that far. They can go a little bit farther, more for transformation. There's also joint right there if you need to him to do that. I mean, you can make him do a sumo pose if you want, but that is more for transformation. You do get a lot of bend at the knee, about 90 degrees, and there is not a secondary swivel at the knee. You have a foot swivel, quite a bit of an ankle pivot. Toes can move down. It's also more for transformation, and this is also more for transformation. So that's about it for articulation. Okay, so here we have his Minicon companion named Leader 1. Not Drillbit, Leader 1. If you're familiar with GoBots, that's also the name of the leader of the GoBots way back when. Because Hasbro does own the rights to GoBots. But there he is, and he looks pretty cool. His head is on a ball joint, can do side to side. You can look down a little bit, you can look up a bit, and his head could do a full 360, but it's kind of stiff. Okay, well, maybe not so much now, but yeah, you can do a full 360. The arms are on a ball joint, but their range of motion is a bit limited by these right here, but you can go up about that far. You can do a full 360, you just have to move these along with him. He does have a bicep bend, can get a little over 90 degrees bend at the bicep, and it can only go out about that far. Legs can only go out about that far. You can kick that back that far, forward that far. A little less than 90 degree bend at the knees. He does not have hip rotation, but he does have an ab crunch. So that's about it for his articulation. And for comparison with Leader 1, let's bring in Naval Commander's Goldbug, his little Minicon partner. Goldbug definitely feels a lot more flimsy when compared to Leader 1, and Leader 1 is has a lot more of a straightforward transformation than Goldbug. And of course, no comparison would be complete without comparing him to Naval Commander. And here they are. And yes, he is very small in comparison to Megatron. But that is in his uncombined mode with his trailer. Without his trailer, I mean. Anyway, yeah. So they actually look pretty good together. I actually kind of like displaying them in a battle scene like this a little bit more, because Optimus seems a little bit more like an underdog kind of thing, rather than, because when he's combined, he's significantly taller than him, or taller enough to where it doesn't seem as much of a fair fight, if that makes any sense. It's just kind of weird. So that's about it for that. To start off the transformations of this video, we'll start off with Leader 1, the Minicon, because I mean he is, well, fairly simple to do. You just flip that up. Just make sure his arms are completely inside those sleeves, if that's what you want to call them. His legs, then, well, you want to flip out the barrels of his two guns. And before we get him into his vehicle mode, I'll just show you his gun mode real quick. You just pretty much tab the front of these arm things into his legs. And same on the other side. Although sometimes it can be a little tricky to get quite in there perfectly on both sides. And you line it up and okay, you get these all lined up, and then you just flip down this handle like so, and then he can be held by Megatron, although I wish the handle could be a little bit longer because he doesn't tend to hold it the greatest. And I suppose I can just go ahead and place him in Megatron's hand just for a moment. And he does slide in there, but it doesn't feel as sturdy because it doesn't slide very far down into his hand. But there you go. We have that. To get him into from gun mode into his vehicle mode, you just flip that down, untab from the sides of his legs, and then collapse his legs down, collapse, leg down, get those together, and then this also tabs back into his leg, right down there, and down there. And then you have him in his vehicle mode, which is pretty cool, I guess. It looks like the front of a tiny truck with huge wheels. I mean, it's a Minicon. It's a Minicon, so of course they're gonna look a little goofy. I feel like they might put a little more detail than was necessary for this guy, but that's okay. It looks good. And for comparison, here we have him with Goldbug. Goldbug, although like I said, he is flimsier, he does seem to hold together in his vehicle mode just a little bit better. But yeah, they look pretty cool together. But overall, I feel like Leader 1 does feel sturdier, though, out of the two. Okay, we all know that Megatron in the Armada show could also do another thing with his Minicon, although you can't, as far as I can tell, you can't put his Minicon on him in this configuration, at least not in the same way. But to get to this configuration, you lift up his arms, lift up his chest piece, and then you pretty much just rotate his hips around, lower this down, and then you rotate his upper body around, and then you slide it forward or look back as necessary to get this tab to line up in there. You just press that down and in, and then adjust his treads as necessary, or however you want to position them. And then you try to get this centered up on here, or however you think it'll look the coolest. And then you just flip his turret out, gun out, and it looks goofier. It just makes him look kind of fat, I think, personally. But it is something that you can do, and that he did do in the show. And Leader 1 would go on here, on the actual original. But if you crank the turret, it does get a firing feature of like the recoil action, which is pretty cool. And then there's this little button thing right in here that gets pressed every time it comes in and out. So every time it'd be like a muzzle flash. which would be really cool. Wish I could show it off, but alas, I do not have the batteries. You can also get this to flip out by pressing a little switch or button right there. And although it doesn't quite line up, it sticks out there, but you could flip that out if you wanted to do that. And then that's also more for his tank mode. Then you just close that back up. And yeah, this is his, I guess, powered up attack mode, if you want to call it that. So yeah, it has its pros and cons. And for comparison, let's bring in Combined Naval Commander. And as you can see, you can't even see his head up here. So let's tilt it up. And look, granted, I guess technically speaking, he doesn't tower over him. If you count the shoulders, the shoulder treads do go over Optimus's head by a little bit. But if you count head height, not counting horn height, he comes up to about mid-chest, mid to low chest on Optimus. But that's why, like, if you want to have them actually clashing, like, if they're in, like, a battle scene, from a distance, they look actually pretty cool together. But if you have them, like, in for hand-to-hand combat, it just looks like Optimus is just going to kick Megatron's butt big time. So, yeah, that's about it for Optimus and Megatron together. Alright, to get him into his tank mode, first thing we want to do is get him back to the way he was. Now that we got him back into his standard robot mode, first thing you want to do is go ahead and let's transform his hands. You just bend that out there, lay down his thumb, and line up his fingers like that. So it just has his hands look kind of weird when you do it, but that's what you do. And then you push these in, pull up his chest, cover up that face of his. You can slide that up, might slide back down, but you can do that however you want. Just get that flipped up. Then you untab his arms at the shoulders, flip down, and then push down. Make sure everything's all nice and lined up. On his arms like this, and then rotate his hands like that, and there we have his arms done. And then the treads, they're collapsed in robot mode, so you can just, I don't really necessarily feel comfortable pulling on the tread itself, but it's kind of hard to do otherwise. But you want to pull them out and then push this lever down to lock them in. Let's do this one closer up, but just pull out. Like, there's not really a good way. Okay, I guess if you grip really hard on the side without really much on the tread, you don't have to worry too much about pulling out on the tread itself. And then, like I said, there's this little switch. You slide that down, prevents these from collapsing back in vehicle mode. And then you, yes, silly me. Forgot one important step. You also want to rotate his waist around. There we are. I thought something was off about the arms, as you tab these in right into there. It helps lock his arms into place. There we are. Got them all nice and squozen now. Tabbed in and holding together nice and tight. And if you need to, just line everything up. And then the top, there is panels that you do have to flip out, but that can wait for now while we get him down and work on his lower body. Alright, so for his legs, before we move down all the way there, just tab these panels right without breaking everything loose. Tab that into the side right there. That helps, I guess, lock his hips into place, and also gets these panels out of the way so that you can then do this number pretty much. And this turret tends to get in the way of the transformation, so you just gotta bear with it. And then you flip these panels out, and you can go ahead and flip that all the way out. That's going to be kind of like a cargo door too. And then you just bring that in, and then same on the other side. Flip down, flip out, and then collapse the leg. And then be careful of his hands, don't want to mess those up. And it just kind of closes up together, although sometimes it doesn't. There we are. You just have to make sure you get all the clicks. And you just tab these panels all together, like so. And then you just use the double hinge right there to get lined up, and just tab them into there. And then you're pretty much done with most of the back. And then let's go ahead and, oh, and this right here, this piece does not tend to stay in place very well. It's just this little thing that, I guess, I don't know, covers up this hinge part right there a little bit better. But it is annoying because that tends to pop off. Wouldn't be surprised if I lose something on this guy, if that's one of the things I lose, aside from the horns, obviously. Then you rotate this up, spin around most of the way, and then, like I said, lots of panels on this guy. And get that up there, and then you flip this up and around into there. And then the panels just open up, and then you clip into place. Flip this panel, and it just fills in that gap right there. And then, of course, to do the other side, and then, of course, so it's just get in the way, just pivot that down a little bit, move the turret, there we are, out of the way, so that we can then do the same on this side. Just flip down, flip the panel in, and we've gotten the back of the tank complete. And now we can just get this turret and face it in the back or off to the side, whichever works best for on camera, obviously. And then the front is a little bit trickier because you do have a lot of panels. I feel like they're just trying to hide as much of the robot bits as possible, but still trying to maintain some accuracy to the show, which I do appreciate in an extent, but I also find frustrating because, well, the tank mode doesn't look as much like, it looks more like a standard tank than the Armada style that Megatron was, which was like, you could obviously tell he was like a robot, pretty much. Like there's a big old gap between the front and back treads, which there still is, but it's kind of filled in with these panels, which it doesn't look bad at all. Like it does look like a good tank. Anyway, back to transformation. Now the problem is his horns and head just tends to get in the way of these, which is why the front tends to be a little bit trickier in my opinion than the back. But you get that panel up, and then just, yeah, get that up, flip this panel down, and then same on the other side, flip that out. And like I said, the head just wants to get in the way, and you may have to just work with it by rotating it up on that pivot, which also means that you're gonna have to pivot that back down. But this pretty much with his panels and a lot of things on this guy is just pretty much you have to move things around until you can just get it to fit just right, because things tend to get in the way of other things, which is somewhat frustrating. And then you can just kind of press down on this to get kind of leveled out with the back panels. And then another panel that you need to flip out is right in here. Like I said, there's a lot of panels that are just used to fill up the gaps that a normal regular tank would not have, because I guess that would be a vulnerability. Because why, I guess, pass up on armoring up something if you don't have to pass it up? because, I mean, that's a lot of the internals of the tank that would be exposed, and why am I trying to justify their design choices? Anyway, I also forgot to flip that flap down. Then you just squeeze it together like that, and that should get the hinges, which should be pretty much in line with the shoulders. Have this up, and then the last panels that you want to flip in, which the horns do tend to get in the way a little bit, but they did provide for a gap for them to stick out of, because it would not be Armada Megatron if the horns were not visible in his tank mode, although they of course wanted to hide the head. And then of course you may need to fiddle with the panels to get them to line up just right, but as you can see, mostly everything is as it should be. And then you just position the turret in the middle, and there you have him in his tank mode. And like I said, he is an excellent tank. I really do like it. The turret can do a full 360, although, as you might have noticed, it doesn't necessarily want to stay in the full center, because for transformation purposes, it kind of has to be able to pivot around. And there we go. It's not wanting to go back to the way it was. That's my only major gripe about this figure, is the fact that, there we are, the turret doesn't lock into place as well, but you can get most of the motions of a standard tank without having to worry about that coming undone. Just don't expect too much from it as far as like doing a full 360 without any problems. And then of course it can go up that far. If you need to go down a little bit, that seems just like a bad idea. But yeah, standard tank things, and this still works. You can still do the recoil action, which is pretty cool. And that's about it for the standard tank mode. And for comparison, here he is next to Naval Commander. And as you can see, he is quite a large tank in comparison. Like, he's almost as tall as the trailer, and from bow to stern, or aft forward, pretty much, he is pretty much exactly the same length as Optimus with his trailer. And for the last bit, yeah, I know it's getting kind of long, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. You just want to flip open that, flip this up, flip that up, flip these two little panels inside out. Flip, flip. There we are. There's a little tab on there. And as you can see, this is the beginning of like a little gun station. And then you have a little claw thing that flips out on that side. I might have actually put the accessories on the wrong side. Doesn't really matter because they both fit in there. And then you have this little ramp, launching ramp, I guess, for flight mini-cons. And then, come on, these stay in pretty well, which is good because they don't rattle around too much in his robot mode, but can't be little. There we are. Pull that out. You can leave that up. You can close it back up if you want to, but if you want it to look more like a base, it might make him look a little bigger to have that flipped out. Of course, set that resituated. And then, like I said earlier, push that to flip that out. Flip this up, and then you can have a mini-con sit in here and operate this little, I guess, operate the turret. I guess that's what it's supposed to be. And then back here, you also have a little helipad, I think is what it's supposed to be. Then you have this little thing that flips out. And then this, okay, I guess it's supposed to launch a little car, but you can put a little mini-con and press a button, and it should launch them. And then this piece right here, you slide out the gun, and then these slot into right there. Yeah, parts for me, but it's a base. What do you expect? And then the claw, you just pretty much just extend that out, and then you plug it in on either this one. It doesn't really matter where you plug it in. You can plug it in here, you can plug it in over there. And then I do believe there's one more thing on this side, which there is, and it's a little claw prison grabby thing that you can put like a car minicon or something in there. And speaking of car minicon, let's bring in Goldbug. Yeah, so Goldbug, he's ensnared now. And then for the back, let's pull back the camera a little bit, flip these panels out, and then you have a little cargo area, which looks pretty cool, although you can see his hands if you look inside, but there is nice detailing on the inside, which you can't really see because it's dark in there, but let's see if I can lift him up, and you can take a look, but there is some nice detail on the interior, something that they didn't have to include, but I like it. I think that's the way, like, made up for having all this, is that he has a cargo area, which I think the original one did not have. It had most of these other things, but not this. And you can, you know, put Leader 1 in there if you want for storage purposes. So yeah, yeah, I'd say it's pretty cool for a mobile fortress mode. I mean, obviously it is kind of goofy. I mean, anything from Transformers Armada for the most part was kind of goofy, especially Optimus's extended trailer mode. That, if you want to see that you can watch my Naval Commander review, because I did put that in there. Yeah, I would do a comparison of Naval Commander's base mode, but I really don't want to do that. And this, besides, this is really quick to do. And also, I don't think they would both fit here very easily. So instead, I'll show you a few awesome pictures I took of them together with a bunch of random assortment of mini-cons. So this has been a review of Fans Hobby Meg-Tyranno MB17. And if you like this review and you'd like to see more, please click that like and subscribe button to see more. And until next time, have a good one, everyone.